Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On this Friday, welcome to Ask the Theologian. Glad that you are here with us today and hope you are having a wonderful Friday. Enjoy. It's Friday, Americans, from Taos, New Mexico to across America and around the world. We take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions and have a good time with them. A fun time was had by all. Totally biblical, right dividing. We try to get it right. When we get it wrong, we back up and say, oops, got it wrong. And we learn the Bible together. That's what we do right here. If you have a question and you're watching live, go ahead and put the word question in the chat box. And we will take that, whether you're on Randy White Ministries or YouTube, and look forward to that. Or you can send them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as you know, to Randy White Ministries. Go to randywhiteministries.org, click the little Ask a Question button, and you can take care of it for that. Okay, let's jump right into some questions here today. Like this one right here says, when, let's see, when, I'm going to get all my buttons right. When did, I got too many windows open trying to find my question again. When did God forgive the elect in Colossians 3:12 through 13? Okay, we want to question the assumptions. To do that, we like to dig into the question, see what assumptions there are. So there is a question here about the elect and their forgiveness. Now, when did God forgive the elect? In Colossians 3:12. So we want to know, are the elect even in Colossians 3:12? We might be mixed up here. Who are the elect? What's going on in Colossians 3:12? So let's put that together, 3:12 and 13 actually. Paul says to the Colossians, put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, forgiving one another, if any man have any quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. Now, here, I think you've got a misunderstanding on the question. And actually, a misunderstanding on the verse. You can read this. Put on, therefore, because you are the elect of God, holy and beloved, because you're the elect of God, you should put on bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing, forgiving, even as Christ forgave you, the elect of God. You can read it that way. As a matter of fact, I want to see here how some other translations put that. Let me see if I can pull this up and get us there. Check. I won't be able to put this on the screen for you, but here's New American Standard. So, as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, bearing with one another, just as the Lord forgave you. Okay, NASB absolutely says you all are the chosen of God or the elect. Let's try, here is ESV. Put on then as God's chosen ones. So ESV, no surprise there. They are the chosen. New International, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved. The New Living Translation, since God chose you. New King James, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies. Pretty close to the King James. Now, let's get into the Greek and check Colossians 3:12. As, that's what I thought, as is an adverb. Now, you've got to have something, of course, to go with it. The elect of God. But this is not a nominative, a subject to saying, elect of God, put on bowels of mercy. That's the way all of the modern translations have done it. They have made the elect of God to be the subject carrying out the verb, which is to put on all these things. But that's not what the Greek says. The Greek says, put on. How do I put it on? As the elect of God do. That's how. Not that you are the elect of God, but here's the example of how to put it on. So what he's saying here is not that the Colossians are the elect of God, because they're not the elect of God. How's that? The elect of God is Israel. What he's saying is, put on just like Israel would, or Israel was instructed to in the law. He's saying, hey, the law, holy, righteous, and good, this is a good example for you on how to have bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, forgiving one another. If any have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do you. These are things that are very much in the law. So the elect of God are the manner in which it is done. It is an adverb, as the elect of God. Now, if they were the elect of God, you would have a nominative that would be given there. And so you've got that all of these modern translations, and I don't know, I was trying to see, let me pull up Nestle Land and see if there happens to be, I don't know, should I use the 27th, 28th, 29th version? Who knows? See if there is a textual difference here in this. Well, no, it's the same thing. So basically, all the modern versions just decided, who cares what the Greek says? We bow down and kiss the toe of Calvin. Only the King James and the New American Standard have done this in a proper manner. I'm pretty sure we could find, and Luca, I'm going to have you look for this. It'll be a advanced class for research. But I want the adverb as with any verb, I don't care. And a few passages where you've got as, run as, run as a horse, run like a horse. That means you're a horse, right? Fly like an eagle means you're an eagle. No, nobody's that stupid except the New American Standard and the ESV and the Holman Christian Standard, which of course they had to get rid of in about 5 years to make it the Christian Standard. It's now the Christian Standard. We started out with the Holman Christian Standard, which turned out to be a flop, so it's the Christian Standard now. It's really it's the Christian Standard. We're going to lie about it in its very name. I'm snarky on Friday. They just want cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. We can make some money here, so let's keep updating it so people have to buy a new one. Run like a horse. You ain't a horse. Fly like an eagle. You ain't an eagle. Bark like a dog. You ain't a dog. As. So put on, therefore, like the elect of God, as the elect of God. I think it's basic English. But do we have some other as scriptures do something as? John 13:34, you said? Let's try that one. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you. I can promise you my last dollar. None of those fake translations put love one another because I am you. You are me. They don't do that. You got another one?
Ephesians 5:25.
Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Husbands, because you're the church, love your wives. None of the translations do that because they weren't agenda driven on that passage. Do we have another one?
Colossians 3:13.
Colossians 3:13. Forgive one another, forgiving one another, if any man have a quarrel, even as Christ forgave you. In fact, you know, that's right. Was it 12 that we were in? Yeah. So as the elect, as Christ. Let me just check the Greek here and see what we've got. Yeah, it's the same structure. The in 13, the only difference between even as right here, and I'll get that highlighted for you, between even as versus up here, the as, the only difference is that one is intensified. And that's why King James put in the word even. So here the word is hos, here the word is kathos. You hear the hos in both of them, right? So even as Christ forgave, as the elect put on. So this says that Christ forgave you. Now again, the question was, when did Christ forgive the elect? Well, I'll just say, I don't know, but it doesn't tell us in this passage because it doesn't really say anything about whether or not the elect have been forgiven. When did God forgive the elect in Colossians 3:12 and 13? Well, in Colossians 3:12 and 13, he didn't. He just says that you ought to forbear and forgive if you have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you. Christ's forgiveness of you is the example of your forgiveness in verse 13. Christ's forgiveness of you, you Colossians, is the example. Over here, the bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another. The example there is the elect of God. You look to Israel there. Get your instruction from the law there, because that's quite relevant in and the example of how you're supposed to do it. So, this is one of those that is, I'll say, a universal failure on the modern versions. Any of the modern versions. Version 1 or the revised version of version 1 or the new revised version of version 1 or the newly revised, updated for today's version of version 1, the 29th version of the whatever it is that they keep on revising. This is a perfect example that they all are cash driven and wrong. Every single one of them. Why bother using one? Why do you still use an NASB? Why do you still use an ESV? Why do you still use a Living Bible for all? It's time to use a Bible that's actually going to translate the Greek according to grammar. And unfortunately, that isn't, still the world today. If you were to go to the majority of seminaries today and say, hey, I'm looking for the most accurate translation in English there is, well, that would be the New American Standard English version 2.7. They'll give you some dumb answer and won't even talk about the facts. This here is not even an underlying textual issue. They're both the same. This is just an issue of they totally ignored the grammar on this. And you could give 100 examples. If you took this one to court as, what would it be? Perjury, maybe? What do you, slander? Is that what you say when someone said that you said they said this, but they actually didn't say that? Whatever that is, you took them to court for that, they would have to be found guilty. And maybe we should. Maybe we could take all these to court and see what's up there. I don't know. Let's go to Stephen in North Carolina. Good to see you this morning. What Spanish-English Bible do you recommend? I have a Spanish-speaking pastor who needs this dual language Bible. Okay, I think that what is it, Reina? Help me with the name here. There's a Reina. It's got the word Reina in it. And we're going to find out the actual name of that translation, which I don't use because I don't speak enough Spanish to be able to do it. But you would be able to find a copy that has the Reina Valera, perhaps it is. And I don't know, I should study the history of this. I don't know how it happened because, you got the King James and the Reina, which is a word for queen in Spanish. But you want the king and the queen together. This is how to remember it. I want the king and the queen together. Reina Valera, what is the name of it? We're finding out. It's something like that. I'm going to come back to it, but I'm sure that you could find those parallel side by side and have the English, the Spanish right there, and go with it. And it would be a valuable thing there to be able to look at that dual language Bible. Our missionary that was here is not in the room right now, or I'd ask him, but our missionary here, Juan Chavez, he uses one. His actually has Portuguese in it also. It's a tri-language Bible.
Reina Valera.
Okay, that was it. Reina Valera. So, yeah, you might have to go online. You might be able to go to the is it the Bible Baptist Bookstore in Pensacola? I think they have it online. They're a King James only place, so they probably would do it. I would be careful about just going to the average bookstore. First of all, it's more of a specialty thing. I'm not sure the average bookstore would carry it, but even if they did, the salesman might not know or care what version is what. So go online and look for, I think they're called a parallel Bible, Reina Valera, and King James Parallel Bible. And you'll find one of those somewhere. Let's go to Dustin. Thank you. Good to see you, Dustin. And he says, I have a couple questions. Number one, do you have to be submerged in water to be baptized? Is question number one. Now, I'm going to say, that's not as easy an answer as a question as it seems at the beginning. I sort of want to say yes, but the truth is I want to give a deeper understanding. Let's go all the way back into Scripture. When we open the New Testament, they are baptizing. John the Baptist is one of the first things we see when you open in the New Testament. And this whole thing of baptism is completely new. Let's say Mark chapter 1, John chapter 1. You get, right out of the gate, here comes John the Baptist. He's baptizing in the Jordan River. Everybody seems to know what he's talking about. But if you studied the Old Testament thoroughly, and then you opened up to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew and Luke are going to include the birth story, but then they're going to jump right into the baptism. And Mark and John both skip the birth story. They jump right into the baptism. So you get baptism really quick, and you're going to be saying, I don't even know what this baptism thing is. I read all 39 books of the Old Testament. I studied them thoroughly. I don't see baptism in there. So what we've got is baptism is a Jewish institution that came up somewhere between the Testaments. And God is actually going to use it. He's going to keep it, if you will. But it's not something that has ever been taught. Now, we look at that and we say, okay, they developed in this intertestamental time, they developed this thing called baptism, which God does keep and honor. John the Baptist comes and does it. And Peter tells him, repent and be baptized. So it's definitely not something that they said, just a totally made up thing, get rid of that. What in the world are you doing? He doesn't do that. He takes it, he honors it. So it came up somewhere. We don't really know the history. Looking through the Old Testament, there are some baptisms, plural. You see this in Hebrews chapter 6. Baptisms, plural. Now, if we take that, some washings that related to the Jewish people. There were the washings of utensils that were to be in the temple. There was the washing of the priest before he could go in and serve. It looks like what the Jewish people did was say, hey, there are these ceremonial washings. What is it called? The brass laver, sea, sometimes it's translated, that was at the temple, where they would take both the temple and the tabernacle. They would take and they would immerse. Had the oxen under it, and there was this big. They would immerse the things that were being used for service. They would take those. Now we think they were immersed. It looks like they were immersed. The word came to mean immersed by the time we get to the New Testament, but words come to mean it's hard telling where that meaning came to. It's not. I don't think it's inherent in the word baptizo. I think the word baptizo is to wash, and I don't know. Some people take a bath and some people take a shower. They've both been washed, so it's not inherent in the word. But everything we see in the New Testament, they sure seem to be immersing. They go down into the river. They're doing it at the river. You don't have to read it that way, but it's sure hard to read anything else other than immersion. So I think we could say the practice came up in some kind of thing that the Jewish people basically said, it's good for the utensils, it's good for the priest, why don't we all do it? And God seems to have said, that's a good idea. Why don't you all do it? I would like for you to all do it. And then we also pick up not only from what we can get out of the text, but what we get out of archaeology. You go back to Israel, first century and pre-first century archaeological digs, and you find the mikvah or the mikvot in plural. These are the ceremonial washing pools, the baptismal pools, and they have stairs going into them, one side going in, the other side going out, and it's definitely deep enough that you would go in, you would immerse. We read from, say, the Dead Sea Scrolls about the immersion that they did at Qumran. So everything we can see is that a sprinkling or a pouring would have been a surprise to a first century Jew. And so when we see John baptizing, we say, okay, everything I can pick out, either from the text or from history, says they immerse. They would be awfully surprised to find it to be poured upon or sprinkled upon. Now, so do you have to be submerged in water to be baptized? At least I'm going to say, I don't think anyone in the New Testament would have thought you were baptized by sprinkling or by pouring. That would have been a surprise to them from everything that we can tell. Once again, the text is not just going to black and white answer this for us, but I think there's enough that we can look and say, okay, yeah, this is what they did was they were immersed. So when Peter in Acts 2:38 comes and says, repent and be baptized, then even on that day, 3,000 of them were baptized. You're like, how in the world do you baptize 3,000 people in a day? But I've been to the temple many times, to the temple ruins many times, and there are hundreds of these baptismal pools all around the temple. Many of them, of course, destroyed, but enough that we know hundreds, more than that. And it wasn't the kind of baptism you have today where the preacher got in the water with them, said, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And, I suppose it takes 60 seconds to baptize someone using that kind of formula. And you get 3,000 times 60 is 180,000 seconds divided by, you got 60 seconds in a minute, right? I guess that comes out to about 3,000 minutes. And 3,000 minutes divided by, that's about 50 hours. If you take a minute. Okay, you can't fit 50 hours into a 24-hour day. So how in the world were 3,000 of them baptized, immersed like this? Well, they were, there's a bunch of these baptismal pools, and truth is you baptized yourself in those baptismal pools. Everything we can see is you went in, you immersed yourself, you came out. It was a semi-public kind of thing in that, there's the other people knew you were doing it, but you weren't really out and open. As a matter of fact, from everything we can tell from the Dead Sea Scrolls, you did it with no clothing on, so it wasn't just, out in the river. Hey! So I think we created this church kind of baptism thing that became something very different. Now then, let me add to that, I think what might even be a more important part of answering the question, do you have to be submerged in water to be baptized? I would say if you were a Jew in the first century, the answer would be yes. But by the time Paul comes along, he actually says, Christ didn't send me to baptize. He separates himself from baptism. I think that you can build a very good argument to say, you don't even have to be baptized. As a matter of fact, I think the argument is so good that even the Baptists will agree with that. And Baptists are named after being baptized. So even the Baptist would say, you don't have to be baptized. Now, they would high pressure you to do it, but they would say, yeah, you know, you can believe the gospel, accept the gospel, trust in the gospel, never be baptized. They'd probably mess up from there. They would start out saying the right thing. But even if they would say the right thing, I think we would have to say, okay, do you have to be submerged in water to be baptized? I would say, yeah, if you're a first century Jew, you had to be baptized and submerged in water to be baptized. Now, I would say, you don't have to be baptized. You don't have to have any kind of ceremony. You don't have to have any kind of public display. You can if you want to. You don't have to. And, you know, some people walk an aisle, some people give a testimony, some people get baptized. We need to be very, 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 very careful to make sure that we're not making those things either a law, an ordinance, a command, to be obedient, to be complete in Christ. It is a separate kind of thing. You know, you can wear here. I'll put on a Bible lapel. There you go. You can wear a Bible on your lapel if you want to. You don't have to. So these are all things that I would say. You know, to your question, do you have to be submerged in water to be baptized? That I think that's the way they did it in the Bible. Do you have to be baptized is a completely different question. Now, question number 2 from Dustin. You can't expect to ask God for anything if you aren't giving him 10%. Oh, okay. So yeah, you what? Have you been to the Baptist church, Dustin? You know, there is I would say a high pressure teaching that says if you aren't giving God 10%, then you are robbing God. And how in the world could you expect him to give anything to you? You are walking in disobedience, living in disobedience. You're stealing from God. And then you're going to go to God and ask him? Here's the problem with this, and it's somewhat the same problem as baptism. What they're doing in that high pressure thing is they're putting some Jewish age of grace, the dispensation of the grace of God, which we're under. They're taking things from before the age of grace and laying them upon you. You know, the book of Malachi was written to Jewish priests in the temple system. And so when it said, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, it didn't say, give 10% of the gross off the top of your income and give it to the local church. That's total fabrication. It's just made up. And the preachers don't want you to know it's made up because they want that cha-ching coming in. So Paul says, what is it, 2 Corinthians 9 or so? Where does Paul say, as a man purposeth in his heart, so let him give? And we are walking under Paul. He is our guide for the dispensation of the grace of God. Jesus, a minister of the circumcision, Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles for the dispensation of the grace of God. Jesus confirming the promises to the Father, Paul sharing a mystery that wasn't developed or given to the fathers. That passage is what? 2 Corinthians 9:7. And here, Paul's talking about giving. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give. Not grudgingly or necessity. God loveth a cheerful giver. This is to say, this is so opposite from if you do not give 10%, you are robbing God. Paul's not saying that. What he's saying is conflicting with that. As he purposeth in his heart. What if you purpose 9% instead of 10%? What if you purpose 1% instead of 10%? Paul doesn't get onto you for that. He says, so let him give. Not grudgingly. not of necessity. Everything about the tithe was of necessity. By the way, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the tithe, it didn't have anything to do with Dustin's income. It had to do with land grown on with crops grown on the promised land. It was his land. He gets 10% of it. That doesn't relate to what Dustin gets as a butcher or baker or candlestick maker, and his every 2 weeks when he gets his paycheck. It's completely unrelated. We've fabricated the whole thing. Modern evangelicalism, the modern tithing industrial complex has made it up. So now, but let's take that statement in the form of a question. You can't expect to ask God for anything if you aren't giving him 10%. Would probably, I think, you can't expect to receive from God anything if you aren't giving 10%. I think that's false. Now, can I then say, well, if you are giving as you purpose, not grudgingly, you give cheerfully, now you can expect to get anything you ask for from God? No. I think that the way the preachers out there want you to think it works is the reason your prayers aren't being answered is because you're not giving 10%. But here's what's going to happen, Dustin. As soon as you start giving 10% and then your prayers aren't answered, it's a game of bait and switch. Oh, well, now, yes, we forgot you. You've got lust in your heart. That's why. You were not praying with importunity. You were, your prayer was not in the will of God. Well, there's always another answer for why you're not getting it. I think the whole system is confused and messed up. These preachers don't know. They're so manipulative. They don't know. They're so confused and messed up. The reason I say that is because I walked in their shoes. I was there. And now I say, you know what? We live in the age of the dispensation of the grace of God, which is somewhat an age of silence in which God is not intervening to bring down lightning from heaven upon our enemies and to pour out the windows of blessing as he promised in the book of Malachi. He's not doing these things now. We live much more today in a world in which a man, he sows what he reaps. That's sort of baked in the cake of the world. There is, can I call it bad luck? I know some Christians are allergic to the word luck, but there's a little bit of luck that, you didn't live where the earthquake happened. You didn't live where the flood came. Good, godly people did. They lost everything. The forest fire came through, whatever. You didn't live there. Does that mean you're more godly than they are? No. It means we're in the dispensation of the grace of God. And we recognize that sometimes things go very well, sometimes things go very badly. There's a lot we can do to make things go well, but there's no promise from God. We give 10%. We go to church, 4 times a month. We witness to our neighbors. We don't smoke, don't chew, and don't go with girls who do. Therefore, he's going to bless us all times forevermore. God's hand will be upon us. I don't think it works that way. Appreciate it, Dustin. God bless you. Dustin, the other day you told me where you were from, and I already forgot. Tell me again, Dustin. I'd love to. I always like to get to know our listeners. Are you a butcher, a baker, candlestick maker? Where do you live? How old are you? And what's your credit card number? Thanks for being here, Dustin. Appreciate it. Those are good questions. Ron up in Chugwater. How would you answer someone that claims that the local church should be run by a group of elders and not a single pastor? I'd like to compare your response to mine. First of all, I would say that I'm pretty strong on congregational rule and pastoral leadership. We're really talking governance here. Who's going to govern things? Technically, I don't want the pastor to govern things. But I don't really want a group of elders to govern things as well. Governance goes to the head. Inevitably, you begin to misuse governance. Put that in the hands of the whole congregation. If we really believe in, let's say, the doctrine that's often called the priesthood of the believer, it's the idea that, hey, every man, woman, boy, and girl in our church, they can go and read the Bible. They can have a relationship with God. They can understand the Word and the will of God perfectly without a mediator. If that's really what we believe, then let's really let the congregation decide. Now, from there, a congregation has ability to determine, okay, how much day-to-day decision-making do we want to do? I think most congregations say, we don't want to approve every, let's say, financial move the church makes. Every check that's going to be signed, before it is signed, we want to go before the congregation and say, well, we have a need for some more toilet paper. It's going to be, $13.95, all in favor of the toilet paper purchase. Let it be known by saying aye. Most congregations are not there. So they set a framework. And whether it's a budget or it's a limit or whatever it is, they set a framework. Say, okay, go do this. Some congregations are just tell us how it goes in the end. And I think it's okay for a church to decide. Some congregations use committees, which in a sense is kind of a specialty elders for various groups. Now, there are congregations which totally say, we don't have any governance, the pastor has all governance. That doesn't even sound like a good idea, does it? But if that doesn't sound like a good idea, is it really a good idea to say, we don't have any governance, but here's 6 guys that do? That doesn't sound like any better idea than one guy that does. I think the pattern we get in the Bible is we see the elder singular. For example, in, is it 2 Timothy 3, if a man desireth the office of a bishop, he desireth a good thing. And all through that talking about, the bishop, the elder, the pastor. It's all in the singular. And then he goes and says, deacons likewise, they must. And it all is in the plural. There's the expectation. There's a group of deacons which sort of help in ministry. They're in the plural. But there's this episkopos, King James uses the word bishop, overseer, that is given in the singular. Now, you find some things like elders in every town, but you're not the only pastor in your town. Chugwater, Wyoming is not a huge metropolis, is it? I don't know how many people live there. What is it, 750,000? Or is it 750? But it looks to me like churches in the New Testament, first of all, they were small. Let's take a home church, because the same person probably, if you said, what kind of church did they have in the New Testament? Well, they had a home church. How many people do you think were there? I don't know. There's 8 or 10 or 15 or 20. And so of that, let's say there are 20. If there are 20, you probably got I'm going to say anywhere from 4 to 8 grown men. Because, they got wives. I mean, if you got 8 grown men, and they're married, 16, probably less than 8. And then, so of the 8 men, you think they selected elders from among themselves? How many do you think were on that board of elders in that New Testament church? Well, they probably would have had 2. Okay, so they have 2. One of them, I suppose, is the pastor, who's not a full-time pastor. He's a tent maker, so to speak. Well, there's 2 of them. So you think 2 is better than just when they get together, all of them say, hey guys, here's some needs we got this week. There's a basket over there. If we vote on it, but we'll vote by. If you put enough money in there to buy the toilet paper, we're going to buy some toilet paper this week. The small and home church can be so simple in its organization. And I think that's better. You don't become a business. You don't become burdened by all these things. It's just us kind of collectively coming together. And if the pastor sort of guides and manages that, to put it out there again and say, okay, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This month we're expecting some utility bills. We need a new heater. We got some of these things. There's the basket, or we're going to pass the plate or whatever. But here's what it's going for. I think that's a better thing. So the whole governance issue, the discussion of the governance issue, is made up by the way we have made up the modern church. We made it a business. We inherited it. We the church did this to ourselves. We wanted it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We wanted it. We put in these committees. We wanted. We got some government regulation, I guess, that we allowed, to have a bank account. You got to have a corporation. To have a corporation, you got to have a board of trustees. You got to have, someone on the corporate board. We let this happen, but it is what it is. We got to deal with it some now and work towards undoing that and coming back to, hey, we're an association of people that kind of makes decisions on our own. So I think if you take this person, it's got to be run by a group of elders. Leave that discussion aside and somewhere unknowingly bring up, what was a New Testament church like? Oh, that's interesting. We want to be like a New Testament church? How could we most be, we don't meet in someone's living room. We do have a building here. There's more than 20 people. How can we most be like that? Probably they would never come up with, well, we're going to have a board of elders, and that's going to come from the nominating committee, and the nominating committee will be selected by the committee on committees, and the committee on committees will be appointed by a 7-member organization and be vetted first, and then they have to have 17 nominations from the congregation, and then there's 2 votes according to the Constitution bylaws, section number 8, paragraph 2. Nobody's going to dream that up. We created ourselves a monster here. Thanks for that. Ron says, my response, by the way, dealt with a pastor's the leader in teaching, preaching, shepherding. Modern day elders and or deacons serve to help the church from a layman's position. I would agree with that. The pastor really is the way we lead is not, I think in a healthy church, the way we lead is not because we're such great businessmen. It's that we teach, we preach, we shepherd, we change the way people think, we guide them in that sense. And I'm a big believer the church ought to be simple enough that it's not really rocket science anyway. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thanks, John Albert, who comes in on Stephen's question earlier on the Reina Valera. RVR 1960. Thank you. Now, I don't know. The one thing I don't know about the 1960, what updates, which one is considered let's say, the equivalent of King James. But I think that both of them, well, I think that all the RVR, Reina Valera, all those are based upon the Textus Receptus, and that's what you want. Now maybe, John Albert, you got 1960 in one spot and 1906 in the other. Not sure which one we should go with there. Thank you. Oh, there's a 1960 comes up twice, so I'm going to go with probably 1960. Thank you. I've got quite a few chats there, so I am only going to be looking for the word question just to make sure I don't lose all those. Rudy, just in case, Rudy brings up a French English Bible as well. King James Francois.net. But you got to be able to spell in French to make it happen. 1960. Thanks for that. Okay, here's this question came in Wednesday, I believe, from Cash. Cash, sorry, we're just now getting to the question. But the question is there a strong case for the end of days in the near future? There's a little bit more going on, or more to this question, but I'm going to stop right there and answer that and then come down to this. Is there a strong case for the end of days in the near future? I am going to say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just come out and be shocking. I tell you, shocking. And I'm going to say no, there is not. Just lost half my audience right there. There's not a strong case for the end of days being in the future. And here's why I say it. I've got some nuance to it. The end of days might be in the near future, but there's not a strong case for it. I want, and Cash wants, a strong case. I would often say a robust case. And as if I'm bringing forth the case, I don't really have anything to go on because the way I'm interpreting Scripture, there's no signs, there's no indicators, there's no precursors. Therefore, my strong case is things I've made up. Well, it seems to me like there's a lot more contrails in the sky today than there used to be, and that's got to be a sign of the end. Seems to me like there's a lot more people, with the sniffles, and therefore, disease is rampant. We make stuff up, and it sells books. You can have the 4 blood moons and all that kind of stuff, the harbinger, all that. If you can lay out the case that the end of days is near, it sells books. But I would say, you can give me, I don't have the time for this, but nonetheless, I'll go ahead and make the claim. You can send me every book that makes the case that the end of days are near, and I can tell you why it's flawed. why it's made up, why you don't need to put any merit into that case. So, the end of days might be near, it might be far, because there's no precursors for it. Therefore, nobody knows when it is. And therefore, all of the speculation and the contriving that we get to say this is the end of days, I think we are messing ourselves up. There's this guy. I'm not sure that I can find it here. Let me just see if it pops up real quick. I won't spend a lot of time. But on X, there's a guy, and I can't remember who he is to look him up, but he always pops up in my feed. I don't follow him, but he seems like several times a day is talking about, it's right now, it's get ready, tie your shoes, come on, be ready, it's almost now. And I've even commented a few times, which is probably why he keeps showing up in my feed, to say, look, dude, you just need to live your life, because you don't know if it's near or if it's far. And his life, I'm going to say, just from reading his texts, his life is miserable. And he's making everybody else miserable. Just the constant, I think today's the day, because the sun came up in the east. And, I'm not seeing him right off hand. And again, I don't remember his name enough to actually look him up. But if you're on X at all and you comment a few times on something end times, it will start feeding to you, and you'll find him. He'll be there, and it gives us this idea. Sorry, I'm not looking at y'all in the eye. I'm looking at X right here as I'm scrolling through here, to try to find him. But I don't see him. I see a lot of AI generated pictures. Oh, I found him. Here we go. Okay. I guess I am following him. I don't know how. I didn't know I was following him. No wonder I get his stuff. So let's bring up here and let's just see a few things here. So it's Greg. The return of Christ is an absolute certainty. Well, that I think we would agree with. They shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. It's usually something like this. Basically it's happening right away. His banner over me is love. The reality, the world is falling apart. It's not falling apart. It's falling into place. Jesus is returning soon. The end of all things is at hand. The sobering reality. Christ is returning soon, not as Savior, but as Lion. The return of Christ for his church is very much on schedule. Fight the good fight of faith. Sometimes it's just these passages, which, if you know where he's coming from, they're end times things. Better to trust the Lord, trust in man. I'm the way, the truth. The world is starved of hope. There's a loophole. Let's see. We're not waiting for the end times. We're living in them. What's happening in the world is not political. It's biblical. Heaven will outshine every sunset, skyline, and dream. David Jeremiah thought it was Oprah for a minute. Look out. Let's see. The first coming of Christ was in obscurity. His second coming, the whole world lies in the grip of the evil one. The world is not insane. It's satanic. The main hallmark of the last days will be deception. Just over and over and over. Now, here I'm just now getting to November 1st. I'm looking forward to a world without sorrow. I want to say, Greg, you're missing out on life because you're constantly consumed with this end day stuff. Might be today. I'm ready. I'd like it. It might be 10,000 years from now. I'm prepared to live that long. It's all good. I'll just keep doing Ask the Theologian until then. Now, Cash goes on to say, the six-day creation with the Sabbath seems to kick it off extremely well. Hosea 6:2, Job 5:19 are interesting. Let's pull up these passages. I am not a big fan of, what shall we say, of a 6,000 year and then the 7,000 year being a pattern for us. It's kind of convenient, and there are some numerical patterns. You know, you can make an argument. I don't think it's a robust argument. Furthermore, I think that we have a hard time knowing exactly when this is. For example, I think, what's the Hebrew year? 5786 or something like that? If we go by their calendar, we're almost to the 6,000 years. But wouldn't it be the 7,000 that comes? And you take Bishop Usher's, you know, at his, what is this, 2025 minus 4,004. Oh, no, you got to add 2,000. No, you got to, we got 4,004 plus 2025. No, I got to type it in right. Taking out the 0 year, 6,028. So we're 28 years into it. Lot of variance. But these couple passages, after 2 days he will revive us, in the third day he will rise us up, we shall live in his sight. Or Job, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall be no evil touch thee. Now, these are passages you can use for that argument, but I think you would agree with me. They're not inherently about that argument, and if you don't have that argument in mind, you might not even think about it. In fact, probably wouldn't even think about it. So to use that in the argumentation, I think, if I were trying to make that argument, I probably would use those passages along with 2 Peter 3, you know, a day is to the Lord 1,000 days, and 1,000 days is a year, a day. But you're right, most religious calendar systems support about 7,000 years of human history. But so much variance, even, you know, let's just take it, let's say, okay, we buy it, we accept it. But I think all of us would agree there's somewhere between 50 and 250. This is on the short end. 50 and 250 years of, you know, give or take 250 years. Even if we say give or take 100 years. I don't know that I should quit my job on a give or take 100 year kind of thing. Even 50 years. 50 years, you know, chances are I'm going to be dead. If I calculate it, here we are today. Oh, it's 50 years off. Okay. My children are going to be older than I am now when that happens. My grandchildren are going to be living in the People's Republic of the United States. So there's way too much variance. I don't know that anybody And I guess there's some out there because they got to sell books. You can't sell saying, hey, so I think somewhere in the next 250 years. Yeah, I'll wait on that book. I got some other books of more pressing matter. So they try to come up with this narrow stuff, but they don't put in the assumptions in there that say, okay, I could be off 1,000 years here. So back to the question, is there a strong case for the end of days in near future? I'm going to say no, there's not. Other than he's coming someday, and today's as good as any day. I think we ought to live every day with this I'm going to say a dual focus. Every day I ought to expect the Lord to return in rapture. And every day I ought to expect I'm going to have to live through this entire day. And so I better plan on what am I going to have for supper? I better go ahead and get something out of the freezer. So live every day, and then do that with every month. You know, I might be out of here by the time the car payment comes due. But I better be figuring out how to make the car payment just in case I'm not. Every year, do the same thing. Every life. You know, I got 2-year-old grandkids. They might not make it to 10 years old because of the rapture. But we ought to plan for them to grow up and be successful adults and, you know, get a job and make it on their own and provide some income and never trust the government and all those kind of things. I ought to go ahead and teach them that. I ought to teach Miles and Layla, my youngest grandkids, I ought to teach them, the things that they're going to need to live a long life and die of old age. Because it might happen. There's my take on that. I love the question, Cash. Thanks for that. This is why I don't get invited to the prophecy conferences. That kind of stuff doesn't sell. Gerard says, did you catch the Congresswoman Claudia Tenney introduced a resolution on October 28th supporting Israel's sovereignty over the Temple Mount and religious freedom, congressional initiative to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Al-Aqsa Mosque raises alarms. It seems that the U.S. wants to support the building of the third temple. Well, the problem is, Gerard, is that these congressmen introduce resolutions. First of all, resolutions don't mean squat. They are not worth a plug nickel. It's just something people, they say this to get in the news. So nobody votes on it. And if they did vote on it, let's say it got 100% vote, it still don't mean squat. You could not buy a stick of gum with a congressional resolution. So a resolution, it's not a bill. It's never going to become a law. It's never going to become the public policy. It's Claudia Tenney's way of getting in the congressional record and in the newspapers and getting invited to a few places. That's all a Congress. So, she can stand up and make a congressional resolution. Everybody ought to flush their toilet twice when they go. Twice is good. Twice is nice. Flush twice. And it would pass. It would be in the congressional record. She could get on the news for it. Twice as nice. And it's still just a toilet flushing opinion. So a congressional resolution, who cares what the congressional resolutions are? And furthermore, let's say that passed a bill and it was actually American congressional policy. It's still not worth a plug nickel. You know why? Because the Congress has zero say in foreign policy. That is wholly in the line of the president. So 100% of the Congress can say, let's build the third temple. And it don't mean squat. Not a thing. That's up to the president. And the president changes every 4 years, 8 years at the most. So, therefore, foreign policy changes every 4 or 8 years. And sometimes the president even changes his mind. It changes, in a different manner than that. So to say it seems the USA wants to support the building of the third temple, no, it seems that Claudia Tenney introduced a resolution on October 28th. Is all that seems. Don't ever overestimate the meaning of a congressional act. For the most part, it means nothing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to go. We're out of time. Took you over time. I got a few questions that I did not get to. My apologies for that. But randywhiteministries.org, you can submit them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I look forward to seeing you, talking with you, and having a good time. We'll be on twice on Sunday. Look forward to seeing you there. And until then, God bless. Thanks, randywhiteministries.org.